My name is Mara Callan. I'm 32. And last night, my phone lit up with a notification I was never meant to see. Lydia Rowe added you to real ones only. I blinked, thinking it was spam, until the preview appeared my name, followed by a string of laughing emojis and a message that read, "She'll quit again soon." Another came right after. "Paramedics don't last. One less screw-up to worry about." My chest went cold before my mind caught up. I opened the thread and scrolled. Hundreds of messages. My mother's name at the top. Lydia's just beneath. They called me a burden. A mistake. A charity case someone had to keep. One line stopped me mid-breath. Mom's text. "She means well." "But failure's her only talent," Lydia replied. "At least she doesn't have kids." Can you imagine? I stared at the screen until the words blurred, and I realized my hands had gone still. I typed one sentence and sent it without hesitation. "Thanks for the proof." No punctuation. No explanation. Then I watched the group go silent. Their last seen dots frozen like they'd seen a ghost. I didn't delete a thing. Every word. Every insult. I saved it all labeled. Dated. Archived. 3 weeks later, I walked into my grandmother's 70th birthday with that digital evidence sitting quietly in my pocket. A truth waiting to breathe. By the end of the night, none of them would ever call me the charity case again. The morning after the messages, I sat across from my mother in her flower shop, the air heavy with perfume and pretense. She smiled without looking up from her bouquet and said, "You've been working too much again. Mara, maybe if you slowed down, you'd finally settle," I answered lightly. "People don't stop having heart attacks because I need a day off." She laughed. That thin, practiced sound. Always dramatic. "You make everything sound like life and death." I didn't bother correcting her. Later that evening, Lydia called while applying lipstick in front of her phone camera. The ring light catching her every word. "You work with dying people for minimum pay," she said, smirking at her own reflection. "That's not a career. That's punishment," I told her. "At least I don't sell filters and call it life." She rolled her eyes. "You've always been jealous." "Mara, Mom says you never could stand me being successful," I said. "If success means pretending, I'm fine being a failure." She hung up before I finished the sentence. When Grandma Ruth called that weekend, her voice was softer than usual. "I'm turning 70. Sweetheart, we're having a small gathering at the house. I'd like you there." My chest loosened a little as I said yes. She asked if I was doing all right, and I lied. "I'm fine." She didn't press. Just said, "Then bring that calm face of yours and come hungry." For a moment, it felt like someone still saw me without judgment. The next day, I stopped by Mom's to drop off paperwork for Grandma's prescriptions. She was in the kitchen, phone face up on the counter, arranging roses for the party. A message from Lydia flashed on the screen before I could look away. "Remember cocktail dress. Photographer comes at 4. I stared at the words while the bouquet trembled in her hands. She noticed my silence and said sweetly, "It's just casual. Honey, nothing fancy." I nodded, though my throat burned. When I left the shop, I passed the new display window filled with white lilies, each tagged with the shop's name in gold. From the sidewalk, I could see my reflection tired, unpolished, and visible. Behind me, their laughter drifted through the glass. Families like ours looked perfect in pictures because someone like me was always cropped out. That night, I opened the group chat again, scrolling from the top until the screen blurred under my thumb. The first message was 6 years old. From Aunt Nancy. "Finally, a place to talk without Mara reading everything," Lydia replied. "Charity case, free zone," my mother added. "Girls, Don't be mean. But yes, this is nice. The words sank through me like cold water. The deeper I read, the uglier it became. Bet she never makes captain. Lydia had written when I started my first paramedic rotation. Aunt Nancy answered. She'll burn out like always. Mom typed. She's too proud to ask for help. Too weak to make it alone. There were laughing emojis stacked beneath it. As if cruelty was a family tradition. When they learned about my divorce, Lydia wrote, Who'd stay married to someone that boring? Mom replied. At least she doesn't have kids. One less mess. They treated my heartbreak like a raffle prize. And I could almost hear their laughter behind every text. I copied everything into a single folder labeled The Ledger. Screenshots lined up like evidence. Neat and quiet. As I saved the last one, I noticed a message from a few months earlier that stopped me cold. Lydia had said, Grandma's been weird lately. She's writing names in this notebook. Aunt Nancy asked. Like a diary? Lydia replied. I saw Mara's name in it. A lot. Mom ended the thread with, She's 70. Probably writing grocery lists. My hand froze over the screen. The image of that brown notebook flashed in my mind. The one Grandma kept beside her chair. Pages filled with her looping handwriting. She once told me she liked to keep track of who shows up. I thought she meant in the sentimental way. But maybe she meant exactly what she said. I put my phone down, the glow fading from the screen, and whispered to myself, She knows. For the first time that night, I didn't feel alone. Lydia showed up at my door 3 days before the party. Eyes red, voice trembling with something that almost passed for remorse. Mara, please. Can we talk? She asked, clutching her purse like it held her innocence. I said nothing and let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands. You can't tell Grandma. Her heart's weak. This could literally kill her. I leaned against the doorway and said quietly, Her heart's stronger than your conscience. Lydia looked up sharply. Mascara smudged. You've always wanted to be the victim. I met her eyes. And you've always needed someone to play the villain against. Way! She flinched. The kind of reaction that says the truth landed where it hurt. You think you're better than us now? Because you have screenshots? I told her. No. I just have proof of what's always been true. Her tone changed. Sharp and defensive. You don't understand. Mara. The chat got out of hand. We were just venting. I asked. For 6 years? And watched her shoulders drop. You can't ruin everything over a few jokes. She said. Voice rising. This family, I cut her off. Ruined itself when it turned cruelty into conversation. Dour. For a moment, she stopped pretending. Her voice went flat. You know, this is why no one likes you. You make everyone uncomfortable. I said. That's because the truth usually does. She stood, forcing a brittle smile. If you go through with this, you'll regret it. I opened the door and stepped aside. I already regret staying silent this long. She hesitated in the doorway, then muttered, You can't win. Mara, I said. I don't need to win. I just need the truth out loud. When the door clicked shut behind her, the silence felt clean. For the first time in years, I could breathe. The day of the party. The house looked like a magazine spread. White chairs lined the lawn. A string quartet played near the porch. And someone from the local paper was already setting up a camera. Lydia caught sight of me walking in and said, Oh, you made it. Grandma will be thrilled. I answered. She invited me. I wouldn't miss it. My mother's voice followed. Too bright to sound real. Mara. Sweetheart. I told you casual. But that dress is Fine, I said. It's called appropriate. She smiled like she'd bitten into something sour. When the photographer gathered everyone for family photos, Lydia said smoothly, Mara, maybe stand in the back. The light's better up front. Mom nodded in agreement. You understand. Honey, we just need balance in the shot. I stepped behind them without a word. The pattern familiar, Lydia whispered to a cousin. At least she showed up. It's good for the image, I said quietly. Whose image? And she turned away. Pretending she hadn't heard me. Grandma Ruth's voice broke through from across the yard. Mara, come sit with me a while. The air stilled as I crossed the lawn. She took my hand and said softly, Stay until the end. I have something to say. I loaded. 2 hours later, when everyone had eaten and the sun began to dip, Lydia tapped her glass for attention. If I could just say a few words. She began. Her tone rehearsed and graceful. Grandma, you've taught me so much about love, family, and grace. I hope to live like you someday. She dabbed her eyes with a monogrammed napkin, pausing for the camera flash. You've been there through everything. She continued. And I'm so proud to be the granddaughter who's always by your side. The crowd applauded. My mother beaming. Aunt Nancy actually crying. I stood at the edge of the patio. To silent. A cousin leaned toward me. Aren't you going to say something? Before I could answer, Lydia turned with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, Mara's too busy saving lives. She doesn't have time for speeches. A few people chuckled politely. I said, That's all right. Grandma knows who's been there. Lydia's expression faltered. A small crack beneath the gloss. Grandma met my gaze across the crowd and nodded once. When the noise faded, Ruth rose slowly, her voice quiet but firm. Everyone. Before we finish, I'd like to say something myself. The yard fell silent. At 70, you learn that family isn't who takes pictures with you, but who shows up when no one's looking. Lydia's smile froze, and my mother's hand slipped from her wine glass. There's someone here who's done that for me, Grandma said, looking straight at me. Mara, come stand beside me. I moved closer, every eye following. Grandma's tone softened. This is my granddaughter, the one who's kept her promises, even when no one thanked her. My mother whispered, Mom, maybe not now, Grandma said. Now is perfect. The crowd shifted uneasily, but she kept going, her voice clear. Tonight, I'm reminding everyone what loyalty looks like. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Every silence in that moment spoke for me. Grandma stood taller than I'd seen her in years and said, There's one more thing before anyone leaves. Her tone quieted the lawn. Ben! Would you please? Ben Harper, her attorney and longtime neighbor, adjusted his glasses and unfolded a document. Mrs. Callan asked me to read this publicly. It concerns an update to her estate plan. My mother's face drained of color. Lydia whispered, She wouldn't dare. Grandma said evenly, At my age, I can do anything I please. Ben's voice carried through the crowd. Ruth Callan hereby places her property into a trust, naming her granddaughter Mara Callan as executor and primary beneficiary. My mother gasped. You can't just rewrite everything. Grandma turned toward her. I didn't rewrite anything. Deanna. I corrected it. Lydia's voice cracked. You're punishing us for something stupid online. You don't even understand what it was. Grandma said. I understand perfectly. I read it all. The crowd murmured, the sound uneasy. Lydia stepped forward, desperate now. Grandma! It was a joke. We were venting. Everyone does that. I said. You vented for 6 years. You placed bets on my divorce. Lydia glared at me. You shouldn't have read private messages. I replied. Then you shouldn't have written them, my mother said sharply. This isn't the place. Grandma answered. It's exactly the place. Everyone who matters is here. Duck. Ben continued reading. His voice calm. The remaining assets will be divided equally among the other family members. Aunt Nancy muttered. That's ridiculous. Grandma looked at her. What's ridiculous is mocking the one person who kept this family from collapsing. Lydia's tone turned cold. You can't just hand her everything, Grandma said. I can. And I have. The finality in her voice silenced the yard. I faced my mother, her eyes wet and furious. You decided years ago I wasn't family. I said quietly. I'm just agreeing with you now. She tried to reach for me. Mara. Please. We didn't mean. I stopped her. You meant every word you typed. Lydia's hands shook. You'll regret this. Both of you. Grandma said softly. The only regret I have is letting it go on this long. For a long moment, no one spoke. The laughter. The music. The chatter all gone. Grandma placed the folded document on the table. Family isn't blood. It's behavior. I'm done pretending otherwise. I felt the weight lift off my chest as she said it. For the first time, the truth stood in the open, and no one dared look away. After the party ended, the yard emptied like a tide pulling back from the shore. Lydia tried to corner me near the gate, her voice breaking. You think this makes you the hero, I said. No. It makes me honest, she whispered. You ruined everything, I answered. I just held up the mirror. She turned away. And for once, she had no performance left to give. Inside, my mother sat alone at one of the tables. Her makeup streaked. Her wine untouched. Mara, she said softly. I don't even know what to say, I told her. Then say nothing. She looked at Grandma Ruth, who stood behind me like a shadow of justice, and murmured, We went too far, Grandma said. You didn't just go too far. Deanna, you stayed there. My mother's eyes filled. But I didn't comfort her. The words had already done what silence never could. Aunt Nancy slipped by, muttering, She'll regret this, Grandma said. No, she won't, but you might. Her tone was calm, almost gentle, and that made it sting more. I felt a strange stillness settle in me, the kind that follows a storm once the air clears. Grandma touched my arm. Truth has a quiet echo, she said. You just let it ring. I nodded because she was right. And for the first time, I didn't feel small for staying quiet. In the days that followed, the consequences arrived without my help. Lydia lost her biggest client after someone leaked the story. Mom's friends stopped returning calls, and Aunt Nancy transferred to another branch 3 states away. Grandma called one night and said, You didn't destroy them. Mata, they did that themselves. I told her. I only showed them what they built, she said softly. And that's all justice ever asks. The line went quiet, and I realized peace wasn't loud. It just waited. Weeks later, I was back on my night shift, the ambulance humming beneath the streetlights, the city breathing around me. The quiet between calls felt different now, less like emptiness and more like space I'd earned. Grandma Ruth's voice still lingered from our last talk, her words steady as a pulse. You know what peace is, Mara, she'd said. It's the sound of truth with nothing left to prove. I'd smiled and told her. Then I think I finally hear it. Accept it. I drove past the same neighborhoods where I'd once felt invisible and realized I wasn't chasing belonging anymore. The ledger sat locked in my desk at home, untouched since that night. Every screenshot still there. But I no longer needed them. What mattered had already been said. And it was enough. I could still see Grandma in her chair, writing one last line in that brown notebook. Mara stayed. Family restored. It was all the closure I'd ever wanted. To everyone who's listened this far, thank you for staying with me through it. If you've ever been made to feel small inside your own family, remember, truth doesn't need an audience to matter. I'll see you again soon for another story worth telling. If you've walked this far with me, thank you for listening. Stories like this one only matter because someone chooses to hear them. If it reached you in any way, share it. Or just remember it. I'll be here again soon with another truth that deserves a voice.